Week 4 has officially kicked off with some more controversy on the Dolphins side of things, to say the least, and a scary series of events involving their quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. You are listening to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 and Secret Weapon Consulting. I'm Adam Wright along with CJ Medeiros. CJ, so we have a big episode planned for you guys. We're going to talk about Buccaneers Chiefs and how they're going to be staying in Tampa through Hurricane Ian. We're going to talk about Eagles-Jaguars and whether or not whichever team loses is going to be a pretender, has egg in their face for the rest of the season. Going to hit on some fantasy stardom sit-ems as well. But first, I want to touch on Tua Tagovailoa. Now, I touched on this briefly when we were just opening, but Tua Tagovailoa was taken off the field in a stretcher, and he's now been diagnosed with a concussion. After this past Sunday, he also came off the field after he got hit. He stumbled getting back into the huddle and even fell down. So, CJ, I know you have some strong feelings, so, buddy, the floor is yours.
Oh, I thank you for the tasteful introduction, Adam. I do appreciate it. But I saw what happened in that Miami game, and that was just horrendous. And my thoughts are with Tua. I hope he gets better. I really do. But plain and simple, heads need to roll for this. You know what I mean? Forget it. I'm not even going to try to mince words. Miami, just for shamed. How did you let this happen? You finally have what looks like your franchise quarterback, and you put him out there to get killed. And then you got Mike McDaniel hemming and hawing like, oh, we take the concussion protocol very seriously. Well, I have some news for you, sir. The lie detector determined that was a lie. Because he should not have been out and back in that Buffalo game. And he shouldn't even have started this week. And this isn't even about football. This is someone's life. If you get 2 concussions on top of each other, that can kill you. And I wouldn't blame Tua. I mean, I know he's not gonna, but if Tua wanted to say, I can't play anymore, then I wouldn't blame him. And let me tell you something. Someone screwed up. Someone screwed up. Maybe it was Mike McDaniel for literally just saying, hey, yeah, you can just jump back in the game. Or they said he cleared concussion protocol. Maybe it was whoever, applied the concussion protocol, should be fired. Heads need to roll for this. And this is unfortunately part of a larger trend of this tomfoolery that the Miami Dolphins are part of. Now, there was the whole tampering thing and tanking, and now you're outright trying to kill your starting quarterback in the name of winning a game. He obviously wasn't right in the Buffalo game, and yet you brought him back in. And if I could have forgiven that if you sat him for Cincinnati, but you did not. You rolled the dice and you lost. And like the NFL Players Association are saying they're going to bring this to the legal hemisphere. They literally said they are going to pursue almost every avenue of legal action they can, and I don't blame them. And let me tell you something, NFL. If you want those safety commercials with like new turf and new helmets to mean anything, if you want your commitment to, and I use this term loosely, player safety to mean anything, the Miami Dolphins better get a historic punishment. Like this needs to be probably the biggest punishment ever doled out in the history of the NFL. And just a suggestion. So you know how they were docked this year's first? I'd say dock their second as well for this year. Dock them next year's first. Find the organization $50 million and suspend head coach Mike McDaniel for the remainder of the season, if not for next season as well. Now, and here's the thing. As the coach, he gets a final say. If Tua passes, he can still say, no, I don't want you to. But the fact that concussion protocol obviously was not done right, and McDaniel's a smart guy. He should have known. He should have known. And even as a fan, you knew if I could tell that your quarterback's hurt and you can't, we have an issue. So someone needs to get suspended. Someone needs to get fired. This Miami organization should get the book thrown at them and the hammer dropped upon them. Adam?
Look, so what the league does have going for them is that the Miami Dolphins have just recently already had the book thrown at them. So they were already able to make an example of them. Now they can do that even further if they were to launch an investigation and find that something went wrong, which most likely there was. And so I just hope that their training staff doesn't get fired, and they probably will, but I don't think they should, because they don't really I just don't see how you could possibly find that the medical staff was hiding something unless they messed up, like they screwed up, but they're professionals. I don't think they messed that up. It's not that hard to detect a concussion, especially with what was going on with Tua. What I'm thinking is someone high up there, somebody either in the front office, with ownership, either with their coaching staff, stepped in and they said, "We need our star quarterback. We want him playing in this game. Don't just sweep it under the rug." Somebody asked them to do that. And when you're the training staff, nobody really knows your name. You're not that high up there, and unfortunately, you don't have the leverage in the organization. If they were to take it a step further and say Tua can't play anyways, they were going to get blackballed. They wouldn't have a job. So I blame somebody who's high up there in that organization. And with the Miami Dolphins, they already lost the benefit of the doubt with like 3 different things that have already gone on in that league. I think they will get the book thrown at them. They'll probably get a pick or two, like early picks, surrendered, and they'll probably have somebody fired. Someone's going to get suspended as well. And it depends on what's going to happen based on the investigation, but something needs to happen. And if all eyes are on the league to dive into this and to find out what's going on.
Yeah, Adam, you're correct. And like I said, if the NFL wants their ramblings about player safety to mean anything, then they better hammer Miami with a punishment. Like I said, it's got to be a historic punishment. Anything less, and I'll be disappointed. And not even because I'm a fan of a rival AFC East team. It's like, you could have killed Tua with your boneheaded decision. You really could have. And this isn't about football. This is about a guy's life. And apparently, one regular season win was worth more to you than Tua's, mental health.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Another thing to look at is that, look, I know everybody's saying, "Oh, Tua should be pissed. Tua should be really mad at the organization," and I believe you did off camera.
Yep, and I'll say it now. He should be upset.
Listen, Tua knew the risks. Tua clearly wanted to play. And Tua went out and he listened to everybody. He could have easily just tapped out and said, "I don't want to play." And that would have happened. And that's what would have happened. But Tua's a competitor. Like many other athletes, he's a leader of that team. He really wants to show the rest of his team, which he has a lot of pressure on him, that especially this season, that I'm in it and I'm in it to win it. I'm a competitor, warrior mentality. So I don't blame Tua for how he's feeling, but I also think, yeah, dude, you almost died. And I guess respect for that mentality and for showing that you really want to prove yourself. But he knew the risks. That's all I'm trying to say with that. And also another way to prove that is that just recently he tweeted thanking everybody for his support and everything, and that he's feeling a lot better and he's looking to recover and eventually get back on the field. That just tells the fact that he's on his phone tweeting while he's nursing a severe concussion. That tells me a little bit about that he really doesn't understand the risks here, and that he still cares more about his play on the field than he does with his own health, which is unfortunate. And I feel like a lot of players are like that. A lot of athletes, which leads to some really bad issues after their career's over, because now you don't have football and you have brain damage.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to be on a phone. Take it from someone such as myself who has suffered a concussion through athletics. When you use your phone, it prolongs it and it makes it worse. And you don't think it at first. You don't think how significant it is at first because you don't feel it, but you feel it the next morning. You feel it later, and it lasts much longer. It all depends on how you work with how things are, with how you work, how you nurse that concussion. So it sounds. I mean, look, the organization's guilty, but Tua's kind of going along with it. And I'm not saying he's guilty because he is a victim in this, but he's on board with them. There's really no excuse for the organization, but don't sit here and say Tua should be upset.
Yeah, look, I know
he's on board with all of this.
Yes, I know. I am aware, Adam. But you see, here's the thing. Athletes, especially younger guys like Tua, they want to go out and prove themselves. They want to compete and they want to play through an injury. But as the coaching staff, you basically, as the adults in the room, have to sit him down and say no. And the fact that they knew he still wanted to go out and they just let him, that is just a damning. That's just damning. It really is.
Yeah.
Like I said, you have to be the responsible ones. You have to say, all right, Tua, no, we're going to have to rest you a few games. Also, that statement is like, oh, I'm doing better. Thanks for the well wishes. I'm telling you right now, that's damage control. I would wager that has just been manufactured by Miami, as damage control. It's like, oh, I'm fine. I'm totally good. And if they actually let him tweet that himself, then he doesn't understand and the organization's complicit in it.
I wouldn't go that far. Look,
that is totally manufactured.
Tua has his own phone, man. He's not being hacked by the Miami Dolphins organization.
No, he's not being hacked, but it's Miami like, hey, type this, and he would too.
He could easily tell them to go F themselves.
Yeah, he could. But when you literally just said he's going along with it, so apparently not.
That is true, I guess. But if they were telling him to say it, then that would be a bad look. And I don't think Tua would go along with that. Would you? If you're an athlete and the organization is saying, type out saying that you're okay and that you're going to be that you thank everybody for your well wishes, because like that's really bad. And I don't think Tua would go along with that. I don't know him personally.
I think it happens a lot more than you think.
There's no way that's really, if they find out that something like that is happening, then I just can't see that. I don't know if I'd rule it out, but if that's what's happening, if the organization is going over and saying, type that out. Ooh, I don't know. I don't know about that, because
I'm telling you, it happens a lot more than you think.
I don't know. I just can't see that, because at that point, then Tua's going to think, dude, I almost died, and now you're trying to go ahead and say this. I just don't like. I think Tua's going along with. I understand why Tua's going along with what he's going along with, but for him to do this, I don't think so. Especially since he does have all the leverage here, because he's their franchise quarterback. They're really, they're really banking on him in such a big year where they have a lot of talent. And if he were to turn around and say, go F yourself, then that's egg on the Miami Dolphins organization's face. There's no way they're having him do all this stuff. They have to be like overly nice to him. Like They're probably sending him a bag of goodies. They're probably doing all this stuff. There's no way that they're just going to say, like, continue to control him like that.
Perhaps, but I don't know. I don't know, because apparently some people think that, he might just be going along with it and he's complicit in it. So where's the line drawn? I'm just saying. No, I hear you. I do, but I don't know. It would not shock me if this was manufactured. Teams I would be willing to bet do this all the time. Why would this be different? Miami's on damage control. They know they effed up, and the public knows that they know they effed up. So, like I said, Miami is on damage control, and there's not an argument out there that would convince me otherwise.
I'm sure it happens in other situations, but I just think this one in particular is just. I think this one's unlikely.
Are you kidding me? We already know what kind of organization we're dealing with.
I know.
So it's just really that far out of the question?
But Tua is the key to all of this.
Okay.
Tua is going to be the guy.
Yeah, you literally just said he was complicit in it.
If he gets pissed off,
apparently, according to you, he's not. So why is this not feasible?
Because I think this is something that would piss him off. This would piss anybody off. Like, oh, thanks for the well wishes, but go F yourself if you're going to tell me to say that I'm okay. Yeah. Especially since, like I said, like, he shouldn't be on his phone.
Yeah, he shouldn't. And which is just, and Miami knows about it. And you think there'd be someone with him that says, hey, don't use their phone, or don't use your phone. But hey, once again, Miami, not the best of organizations.
All right.
Especially with this.
We do need to move on. Speaking of taking risks, in the state of Florida, the Buccaneers-Chiefs game, despite Hurricane Ian, is still going to be taking place in Tampa. So we'll go over that, and we're going to go over some keys to that game. So don't go anywhere. This is the Fumblerooski podcast. You are listening to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 and Secret Weapon Consulting. I'm Adam Wright with CJ Medeiros. So, turns out that after some speculation, and there was even a backup plan for where this game, the Buccaneers-Chiefs, would play, which was going to be in Minnesota, because Minnesota was actually going down south themselves. But it turns out the Buccaneers-Chiefs game will be played in Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, despite a massive hurricane currently in that area sweeping through. But this is also a big game for both sides. Both of them are coming off losses. They started off 2-0. Both are going through a couple of injuries. So CJ, first of all, what are some keys to the? First of all, how does the hurricane affect this game, if there's still some effects, and who has the edge in this game? Another one I want to ask is, who needs this victory more?
Well, first of all, about how it would affect the game, as sports fans, we all know rain is the great equalizer. We have seen so many good teams fall to bad teams, not that either of these teams are bad, like in the rain, because, you can't catch, ball's a little slippery, fumbles happen, etc. And then since you're going to be playing during a hurricane, well, it's not the great equalizer, it's the mega equalizer. And when you look at who has the edge, I would usually say Tampa, because it's a home game, but they have an air offense. You know, their running game isn't anything special. And, you know, you have Rashad White, who's been underwhelming, Fournette, who's been underwhelming, and, you know, Brady wants to air it out. But I don't think that's feasible. I think Kansas City's the better ground team because Clyde Edwards-Helaire's been having a good season thus far.
So looking at the weather report, which we probably should have done off the air before we started this segment, it's actually going to be sunny and 86.
What the?
In Tampa. So it looks
so
like
the hurricane like moved past her.
It looks like the hurricane's already gone through like right now.
All right, you know what? Then great. Then just forget everything I said, all right? Someone should have shown me a weather report. I blame Adam, but that's okay. We love him anyway. But seriously, you know what? Then screw it. Tampa's got the advantage. You know, like I said, they're an air raid team. They're getting Mike Evans back, and Julio Jones might play, and
I believe Godwin's back too.
Oh, and if Godwin's back, then there you got the triple crown. Bing, bang, boom. But KC, I like their offense just a little better, but the Tampa defense is also going to be, you know, a force to be reckoned with. But Mahomes has found some success. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but if you want to ask a team to get a stop, I think you're better off with Tampa's defense. I think Tampa's defense gets the final stop, and it's going to be like a one-score game. Maybe something along the lines of like 28-24 or something like that.
So I actually tend to think that this game is going to come down to which offensive line holds up the best, because that's the Achilles heel of Tampa. It has been their Achilles heel for essentially their entire time with Brady in Tampa. Has been, if their offensive line doesn't perform, then they don't win, because that's what you need to do when you have Tom Brady. You have to keep him on his feet, and if you keep him on his feet, then he's going to pick apart any defense. And I just don't think Kansas City's defense this year is no pushover. They're a very balanced team this year. They're not just the electric offense that just puts 30 to 40 points on you, and it doesn't matter if you score 25 to 30, because they're gonna score 35. It's just it's been that type of team in years past. Now they can win by scoring in the mid to upper 20s, because they'll hold you to the low 20s. So I think that offensive line really needs to work its magic, because they're facing a lot of injuries down in there, especially on the interior. They're really gonna need that. And everywhere else, it looks fine. I wonder if there's going to be any rust with all of these injured players coming back for Tampa. But I don't know. It's a very close. It's tough to pick a team in this, because I might have to lean Tampa. They do have the home field advantage. They have more weapons. And we'll have to see who's going to be playing and who's not. But I'm gonna lean Tampa, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Kansas City goes in there and wins the game, because it's just that type of balanced team that really is. They're just balanced. Balanced wins championships. So I kind of like Kansas City. I don't know. I need some time on this one, but I think,
yeah.
But let's get to who needs this win more. I'd say the Buccaneers.
Oh, there's not a doubt in my mind.
The Buccaneers. You have Tom Brady in his age 45 season, potentially his last year.
More than likely, yeah.
So you need to rack up as many wins as you can to get up there in the standings, because that home field advantage is going to be very, very important for them.
Mm-hmm.
They had to go on the road did they? No, they did not have to go on the road during the postseason, but their offensive line was a factor in that game. So they're going to need it.
Yeah. Honestly, the magic and the high-flying power of Tampa's offense seems to have evaporated, be that because all his weapons are hurt, be that because Brady's line's hurt. Well, yeah, actually both. The whole team has just been ravaged by the injury bug, and if they beat a team like Kansas City, I think that would go a long way for their hopes. But if they drop this game, I don't know. Maybe they're one and done in the playoffs. You never know.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they're obviously the best out of their division. I mean, heck, they even beat their boogeyman in the Saints. But there's other, like, better teams out there, like Philly and LA, and I guess to an extent even Green Bay. I don't know, especially if they have to venture out of Tampa.
Green Bay is going to be in contention for their division, but I don't think they're the only reason that they won the game the other day, this past Sunday, is because there were so many injuries on Tampa's side.
Yeah.
That Green Bay just doesn't have the firepower to compete with a healthy Tampa Bay, even with the state of the offensive line for the Buccaneers, because they don't even have a good enough pass rush to exploit it. I have to lean Tampa Bay. No matter how good of a secondary you have, which is a great secondary for Green Bay, but you're not. If Tom Brady's upright, then it doesn't matter who's back there. He's picking you apart. So that's, yeah. I don't know about Green Bay, but definitely the Eagles are a team that look like they could be a threat. But that division for the Buccaneers doesn't look so good either. Like we thought the Saints were going to be in contention with them for the division. We thought they'd compete. And Winston's looking like the same old guy that he was back in Tampa. Mm-hmm. He doesn't look good at all. And
no, he does not.
Let's not even get started on how Baker Mayfield's doing with his new team. So, like, it looks like they have that division won. It's a question on whether or not that division can really, or on whether or not that team can really get up there in the playoff picture, because getting that number 1 seed is going to be really important.
Yeah.
Looking at the Chiefs, even though we said the Buccaneers need it more, that division's also kind of underachieving. And the Broncos could just screw their heads on straight and figure things out. But the Raiders started 0-3, and it looks like they look lost out there. Careless turnovers and really poor coaching decisions. On top of that, the Chargers are just falling apart at the seams with injuries, and their coaching is not looking good either. So the Chiefs, both divisions for these two teams are just not looking good. And the Buccaneers and Chiefs are just proving to the league that they have stuff figured out. They have their team, and looks like experience. And, you don't have to be the winner of free agency in order to be the contending team. You just need experience. You need to be a competitor. You need to have that homegrown talent, and you need to have that franchise quarterback, the Tom Brady, the Patrick Mahomes. But you don't need to have these superstar players you sign in free agency.
Yeah. It's almost like buying your way to the top rarely works unless you're the Rams. And that's like the first time, in like a while where that's actually worked.
But I mean, that's kind of where they already had some established talent.
Yeah.
And then they tweaked the team. They did trade their franchise quarterback for another guy, but I guess you're right. But I guess we've just been seeing a trend where quarterbacks on new teams have been winning Super Bowls. Tom Brady did it a couple of years ago. Matt Stafford last year. So I guess this is a nice change of pace. But
yeah,
we do want to move on, and we're going to hit on this Eagles versus Jaguars matchup. Now, if we were to talk about this matchup a year ago and say that this is going to be a segment on the show, people would be laughing their heads off and probably tuning off. But with how these two teams have been going, it has some storylines to it. So we'll get to that next. Don't go anywhere. You are listening to the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. It's caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown!
This is the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 and Secret Weapon Consulting. I'm Adam Wright with CJ Medeiros. So, the Eagles are going to face the Jaguars this season, coming up this Sunday. And looking at this, the Eagles, don't look now, but they're 3-0, and now actually the only team who is undefeated, the Jaguars. After spending through their faces in free agency, their number one overall pick from a couple of years ago, Trevor Lawrence. He's now playing fairly well. Both teams off to good starts, both with question marks entering the season. Now, if one team beats the other, is the loser of this team, is the loser of this game branded a pretender, like a team that we don't really take seriously the rest of the season? CJ.
Yes, I do think that. And I'm not saying I agree with that narrative. I'm just saying the loser of this game will be branded a pretender by the NFL media, even if they're not. For example, if Jacksonville pulls out the win over Philly, they're like, oh, Philly's not for real. They're pretenders. Yeah, I'm like, and yet I don't know for sure about that. I really don't. I think Philly's more legit than Jacksonville, but if Jacksonville can pull off the upset, then truthfully, they might be legit and they might actually take, the AFC South. Philly, I think, is legit regardless, and especially if they beat, and I think Jacksonville is more likely to be labeled a pretender than Philly, but I think Philly is more legit, and if they win this, they're going to be even more legit. If that makes any sense.
So I look at this matchup between the Eagles and the Jaguars, and like I said, like this would be a joke of a matchup like last year. And now we're looking at it, and both teams are actually looking pretty good early on in the season. And I'm thinking, like, if you're the Eagles, you got all of this talent, and you're off to a red-hot start. And you, like I said last year when we were talking about the Miami Dolphins, usually when you throw a whole team together out of just you put it together like overnight, if you guys are contenders, it takes a few weeks to get going. It takes some time to gel because it's so many new faces you're working with. It takes some time for that relationship to be established. But looking at it, you got off to a red-hot start, 3-0, and you looked good doing it, and you beat some good teams. If you were – that means that you should be getting better after that. So if you look at this with the Jaguars, 2-1, they have a chip on their shoulder. They weren't supposed to be contenders at all. And then you lose to them? I don't know if I could unsee that. For a really long, even if they start to win games again, you lost to Jacksonville. Now, you could look at it the other way and say, oh, well, if the winner of this team shows that they're a contender, maybe the Jaguars are legit. But I don't know if they are.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they are either, but no matter where you stand on them, I think we can all agree these are not the Jaguars of yesteryear. These are not the Jaguars of yore. They're really not. And they're leaps and bounds better than they were last year because, they actually have a good coach, or at least a competent one if, you're not high on Peterson. But I'm kind of with viewers. I don't know what they are, but they're good. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked to see them win the AFC South if things keep trending as they are.
Yeah, and looking at the Jaguars, if they lose this game, then it's really not as big of a deal as it would for the Eagles. But it still kind of is, because they spent, like I said, they spent through their faces in free agency. Yes. They went out and they worked on that offensive line for Trevor Lawrence, and they got some pieces on defense, especially in the draft, and they spent on some toys for Trevor Lawrence. They got Christian Kirk. They have, and Zay Jones has looked good, and Evan Ingram is a guy who's out there. I'll say that much. He's there.
I was gonna say. I thought you were gonna say he was good. I'm like,
he's there, and we know what his potential is. So, like, it still kind of is. Like, if they lose, then it means everything they've done with this 2-1 start. If they lose, then it means they won these games, but they were just paper wins. They took advantage of a Chargers team that was riddled with injuries.
No, I don't think that's fair. Look, I'm sorry. Unless it's like the end of the year and you're fighting for a playoff spot, one loss doesn't derail your season, you know? Unless they get like blown out like 40-0, I wouldn't think one loss changes the narrative all that much. Like I said, paper wins or not, they still at this point in time have just as many wins as they did last year. And we know they're going to get more, and we know they're improved. So I don't understand what the panic's about. And like I said, unless it's like you're fighting for the playoffs at the end of the season, one game does not make or break you.
Yeah.
Especially in week 4.
It could certainly show who you are. If you run into this Eagles team who's been steamrolling over teams, and then you're next on the list, then
that would literally say more about Philly than it does about you.
Well, if they're that much better than you, then if they straight up blow you out, then I don't know if I could. They may not even be pretenders at that point. They could just stink the bed for the rest of the season.
Well, the entire division is god awful.
What was that tweet that the Jaguars put out? They were like 2-0 and not satisfied.
Oh,
it was like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't go so well, did it?
Okay, so yeah, but you always say you don't like things that aren't analytical. That's really not. So you're literally basing a loss this week on like 2 seasons ago about, hey, remember how that happened?
Well,
that's really more anecdotal than anything.
Well, when you look at stuff that happens early on in the season, you don't have any analytics to really play off of other than the season prior. So you kind of really have to look at it like that. You have to look, because there's not much to go off of. It's a small sample size, so we're still figuring out what these teams are.
Okay.
So
yeah.
2 teams
fair,
off to a very good start. But if one of them suffers a humiliating loss,
2-0. No. I'm sorry. If that 2-0 team from like 2 years ago better than this team now? I'm sorry. This team is better at darn near every position.
Right, but better isn't always good. Better isn't always mean that you're good, right? Like you could still be, you could be better than you were before, but like if you.
My point is, I'm just saying it's different, man. I am just saying it's different.
Let's say, CJ, let's say one day you decided not to shower, but and somebody tells you smell. Put some deodorant on. You put deodorant on, but you're still not showered, so you still smell bad. You may not smell as bad as you were before, but you still smell bad.
Look, an analogy aside, is that really how you view this Jacksonville team?
I don't know what they are. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
If the Jaguars were to pull up the victory.
Look, analogies and hyperboles aside, I'm just saying, like, one game doesn't wreck your season, you know?
So you're so
I'm just saying, don't overreact.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see how
Well,
things go.
and I know they will. And unless it's like a monumental blowout, then the NFL world should calm themselves, but I know they won't.
Yeah, and this has been a very good start for Trevor Lawrence, and Jaguars fans should be very happy with how he's been playing this so far this season. Let's see if it continues, or if it doesn't, and the Eagles just smack them into last year, quite literally, because they only had 2 wins last year. But we do want to move on, and we're going to get to the Fumblerooski fantasy fix. We're going to get into some stardom sit-ems for each position. You're not going to want to miss that. Don't go anywhere. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. This is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown.
This is the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 and Secret Weapon Consulting. Adam Wright here with CJ Medeiros. So we're on to our Fumblerooski fantasy fix, where we're going to do some stardom sit-ems. We're going to start at the running back position, where we're going to tell you to put in your starting lineup Breece Hall at Pittsburgh, and following by Jamal Williams versus Seattle. Those are 2 guys who you want in your starting lineup. Going on to sits, we're going to hit on Travis Etienne at Philadelphia, and then Ezekiel Elliott versus Washington. Now going to wide receivers, we're going to start Chris Olave versus Minnesota, and we're going to start Michael Pittman versus Tennessee. Then going to sits, we're going to sit the entire New England Patriots wide receiver core.
Trust me,
because
it hurts us to hate on Hoyer the Destroyer, but it must be done.
You got Brian Hoyer. So you combine Brian Hoyer with the Green Bay secondary,
and add in a dash of Matt Patricia's play calling,
and add a dash. Yep, you're going to get some turn. Yep, and that's also a nice little prerequisite to our defenses we're going to start, which is the Green Bay Packers. Spoiler alert. But we're also lost my place.
Wide receivers sit.
We're gonna sit Robert Woods at Indianapolis. He's not off to the best start, and Indianapolis actually has a pretty good secondary.
Mm-hmm.
Going over to quarterbacks, we're going to start We're going to start Aaron Rodgers. He might as well become a wide receiver with his core.
Yeah. He throws and catches.
At New England. So no, they're not at New England. They're hosting New England, and that's going to be a good matchup for him. So start him. And Kirk Cousins at New Orleans, we're going to start him. For sits, we're going to go with Jared Goff versus Houston, and we're going to sit Derek Carr against Denver. Going on to tight ends, we're going to start Robert Tonyan versus New England, and we're going to put in Gerald Everett at Houston. Going to sits for tight ends, Tyler Conklin at Pittsburgh. Look, Tyler Conklin's had a great start to his season. A lot of that is because of pass-heavy Joe Flacco, who also just loves Tyler Conklin.
Because he loves his checkdowns.
You're transitioning to a new quarterback, so he's a big question mark. If you want to start him, go ahead. If you don't have any other options, but proceed with caution if you're going to.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to sit Noah Fant at Detroit. Going over to defenses, we're going to start, I told you guys, Packers versus New England.
Mm-hmm.
If that defense is available, or if you have it on the bench, start it. Packers defense. Steelers defense at New York, at the New York Jets. They may be traveling over at over to New York. But you got a new quarterback who's just starting off, and he threw a lot of turnovers this past season. So yeah, start him, start that defense. Going over to sits, we have two defenses facing each other. Bill's defense at Baltimore and Ravens defense at Buffalo. That's going to be a shootout, and I wouldn't touch those defenses with a 10-foot pole. But if you have pass catchers in those games, start them as well. Start them. That whole offense is going to both offenses are just going to absolutely violate each other. But there you go with our stardom situms. CJ, do you have any other thoughts before we end the show tonight?
You know what? I really don't.
Nice. Can't say I do either, but I guess we'll just call it. So that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for listening to us. We have all new episodes out on Tuesdays and Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have all our episodes available on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and so much more. Also, be sure to follow our Instagram at Fumblerooski_podcast to keep up with our podcast and the latest coverage on the NFL. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Over and out.